Hello. First of all, I kind of want to apologize for it having taken so long to actually record all this. Anyway, due to the fact that my microphone failed during the last part, I had to re-record everything from here on until the middle of this part. So I hope that's all right. Anyway, this is now part 5 and later on part 6 of my summer car Satsuma build guide. I hope you enjoy it. And now, roll the intro. Well, hello and welcome to now part 5 of getting your Satsuma AMP working in my summer car. Now, last time we built the engine, of course, and now that we have the chassis ready and the engine, we can actually put the two together and get the car to run. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do in this episode. And again, I'm trying to make it as understandable and as easy as possible so that you can follow suit. Now, first of all, you want to push the car into the garage. So therefore, you loosen the handbrake by right-clicking on it. You press J to start pushing your car in, just like that. But be careful. I know I'm having a lot of frame lag. And again, my microphone still failed. Again, in this part, at least in the first part of this recording. So, it is still post-recording me talking. So, again, you want to push your car into the garage like that, but you got to remember that your steering is still off center. The steering rods, they need to be adjusted when the car, not necessarily when the car is running, but as you can see, the car either veers a little bit to the left or veers a little bit to the right, whichever steering misalignment is dominant. Let's say that. So as you can see, I've got already, and there's a phone call, so we just gotta skip over that real quick. And again, what I meant to say was, you need to be careful how far you push your car in. And in hindsight, of course, you know, hindsight is 20/20 and all that. You see, you need to push the car still a little bit more forward. And I'm just gonna edit the rest out and wait and skip ahead until the point where the car is pushed a little more forward in a way that I'm happy with. So, we'll see you there. So, now, okay, the car's a little bit more forward now. As you can see, there's barely a gap between the front of the car and the end of the, gap there. So, you just pull the handbrake and grab the motor hoist now, because the first thing you need to do is, of course, install the engine. Now, be careful with the motor hoist, because that shit, if you jerk it around too much, it's just going to yeet the engine in some corner, and you're going to have a lot of problems. So be careful, grab it, and make slow and calculated movements. I know this sounds hard in the Unity engine, because it's a Unity game after all. But still, do it like that. Just press D for a little bit. There you go. Adjust it. Move it a little bit forward, just like that. Now, if you have it in position, and it should look something like that, that you have it in position now, you can just right-click on the hoist handle and slowly let your engine down like your friends let you down in school when you have a crew project to do. So, also take a look at that right front or left front engine mount. There you go, that little metal part. And look at it, see where the little rubber part is. I can see a little bolt there, and you should have been able to see it too. So, grab your 11mm wrench or ratchet. There you see it. Tighten that bitch. There you go, and it instantly snaps to the engine frame, which is also something you need to look out for. Anyway, there's two more bolts. One on of course the right side of the car, and one what I mentioned already from the gearbox to the subframe. There you go. Now that's tightened. Now that you've done that, you want to, of course. Technically, you could lift the whole car up with the motor hoist, because the engine is still attached to the motor hoist. But for the sake of this, you want to unbolt the engine from the motor hoist using your 10mm, of course, so that you can start working on the car, getting it basically ready. Now, anyway, grab your 10mm and, well, ignore that phone, just gotta cut that shit out. And there you go, that was just grandma calling for some groceries. Anyway, now just unbolt the engine from the motor hoist using your 10mm. There you go, that's one and that's two, and you're gonna have the car sag down a little bit, that's fine. and then you can just grab the motor hoist and get that thing out of the way. There you go. It's back where it belongs. Now, the next I need to speak English, Jesus Christ. The next logical step is grab your 9mm, grab the 9mm, and tighten the half shafts. Of course, we installed the half shafts beforehand already when we built the chassis, but there you go. Tighten them. It's like a triangle. You have one bolt on each corner of the triangle, and you just bolt them in, bolt them in, bolt them in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there you go. Now your car literally can now transmit power to the front wheels, and that's what we want. However, now you technically still need to do some more stuff. For example, installing the electrics. This is literally just the ignition coil, basically. You have to put it there on the left side of the firewall. You can see somewhere here, there it goes. And that stuff goes on with, I don't want to lie right now. I actually have no idea. Let me just see what, that's an 8mm. Okay. Recording me always knows it. So it goes on with 2 8mm bolts. And again, I'll put the text, of course, on screen so you know it without me having to go, So that's that. Now you have literally connected wires from the distributor to the spark plugs, from the ignition coil to the spark plug, yada yada yada. Next thing is the fuel strainer, the fuel filter. And I personally have had a lot of frustration installing that shit, but technically it just goes somewhere like a little bit down and to the left of the ignition coil, to the left side of the engine bay, right there. Again, 8mm. 2 8mm bolts. No, 1 8mm bolt. Jesus Christ, I'm stupid. Again, put that on and now you have a fuel filter. Wonderful. Now, you've put the electrics in, you put the full strainer, and now you want to install the radiator. Of course, the radiator first, and I'm getting yet another phone call. You know, at this point I just had enough. I unplugged the phone so that I could do this mounting shit. Anyway, so yeah, that's basically that. So the radiator goes on the car, obviously, and you mount that with 7mm bolts, 4 of them. As you can see, there's 4 bolts, 1 on each end of the radiator, and you've got to lean over there like a little bit in order to reach that. Otherwise, you just can't. Otherwise, you just won't be able to put them in, and then the radiator's just gonna fall out. Anyway, come on, that one's bolted in, and now come 3 radiator hoses: radiator hose 1, radiator hose 2, and radiator hose 3. So number 1 goes on top of the radiator. It goes on the high end there, as you can see. Come on. There you go. There, that goes to the top of the engine. Radiator hose 3 is the next one, even though it should be radiator hose 2, but whatever. That goes on the bottom of the engine. Connects the bottom of the radiator with the engine bay, as you can hear. And radiator hose 2 actually connects the backside of the engine with radiator hose 3. So it's kind of a messy, little, complicated kind of thing. Anyway, here's a little warning and insert flashing text only for experimental users. As recording me is trying to find the mounting spot, I will let you know about something that I will also have to do after that. If you're not an experimental, you don't have to do that, and that is tightening the radiator clamps. There you go, actually did it. Oh my god, my voice. Anyway, if you're an experimental, and only if you're an experimental beta at the moment, grab your screwdriver. If you're not an experimental, just skip this part. You will see, let me just crouch over here, you will see those clamps. There's one here. You need to tighten them, obviously, so just tighten them real quick. There's one there. There's one on the other end of the same radiator hose. There's 5. So you need to tighten that. There you go. Tighten the other one that's on the same hose. Then there's one on the right there on radiator hose 2. There's another one on the top end of radiator hose 3, or on the bottom end. Let's just do that one first. And then again, the one at the top end of Radiator's 3. If you don't tighten them fully, you will have a serious radiator coolant leak. So you better tighten them. If you're not on an experimental, you got luck, so you don't have to tighten them. So anyway, next are the master cylinders, brake, and clutch. The master cylinders, they are being tightened with one 9mm and two 8mm each. The 9mm, which I will first be tightening. Let me just check at the 9mm. Of course, that is the one that connects the master cylinder with the physical brake, with the physical pedal. As you can see, just crouching forward there's one bolt for the brake pedal and the brake master cylinder, one bolt for the clutch master cylinder that connects to the clutch pedal. So, next step, of course, is taking the 8mm, crouching over a little bit, come on, and there are two nuts on each master cylinder that you have to tighten, one on the top, one off the bottom for the clutch, and one on the left, one on the right for the brake master cylinder. Also, as you can see, be careful not to accidentally unscrew the caps, because that's for the last part of this part. So now that they're tightened, you install first the clutch lining and then the brake lining, or the other way around, it doesn't really matter. However, you will need 7mm socket. So let me just check. Yeah, the clutch lining goes first. As you can see, it has a edgy end and a round end. The round end obviously goes towards the clutch. The edgy end goes towards the clutch master cylinder. As you can see, there you go. That's how you mount it. There are two 7mm bolts on there. One is connected to the clutch master cylinder. Obviously, one is connected to the clutch assembly. So as you can see, there's one of them. And this is the point where I found out, hold on, this nut is tightened around the lining. So of course, stupid me didn't realize that. You need to use a spanner for that, obviously, it's logic. So take your 7mm spanner for the linings. You can't use your red jet, okay? Again, one is there and there's the other one. The clutch cable, which obviously, you know, connects to the clutch. Same deal with the brake lining, but the brake lining is a little bit more difficult because it's connecting, of course, to all the brakes. As you can see, it already looks a little bit complicated, but again, it mounts to the same point basically on, and oh my god, it looks like it's looked like a mess of spaghetti. But don't worry, there are in total 11 brake line nuts. You can see there's one up there. There's one right below it. There's one down at the firewall, somewhere right there. No, not there. Sorry, my bad. There, you can see it. I'm zooming in at the moment, so you can see it right there. Then just follow the lines to the left. Number 4 is right there. Number 5 is to the left. And number 6 and number 7 are on the right. There you go. And right above it is number 7. And there you go. The main brake line nuts are now tightened. And now obviously, as you can imagine, there's one nut, one bolt on each wheel, on each brake. Otherwise the brakes obviously don't work. That's on the left rear corner. That's the nut. So you can tighten that. On the right rear corner, obviously it's the same issue. Come on. Ah, stupid me tried to do that underneath the car. Jesus Christ. I recommend in post, obviously, you do that from above the car. But there you can see it again. Just bolt that in and you're good. Now, of course, go underneath the car for the front brakes. Again, there it is. Ah. There it is. I pressed the wrong button on accident there, so there's for the front right corner, and the front left corner is somewhere there, up there. There it is. Congratulations, that's the worst part for now done. So, let's see. What's the next part that you install? Okay, that's the steering wheel. The steering wheel goes on with a single 10mm bolt, as you could probably imagine, as every bolt on every Japanese car is 10mm. We all know that from Mr. Regular. So just put that on. Get your 10mm ratchet this time. You can use a ratchet now. And just bolt that bitch on. There you go. So, you also have a horn there, so if you when you have it all wired up, and we're gonna get to the wiring in just a little bit, that's its own mess. You can always test if you have electricity in the car by just pressing the horn. If the horn works, congratulations, you did it. Anyway, now obviously a fuel tank. You know, your car's nothing without fuel, so you need to put the fuel tank in. The fuel tank has 7 11mm bolts, which obviously bolt the fuel tank to the chassis. So you just gotta tighten those real quick. And as you can see there on the left, there's a 12mm bolt, which I'm not sure if you can... Can you actually tighten that with the... No, you need this 12mm spanner for that, yes. So there's a 12mm knot you need to tighten with a spanner that connects the fuel tank to the fuel line. You can guess what happens if you don't tighten that. Haha, you leak fuel pretty badly. And you probably won't get any fuel to the carburetor. So, next thing, the fuel tank pipe. Obviously, otherwise, how the hell are you gonna fuel up your car? Again, please don't mind the random crashing noises in the background. That's literally just Unity engine. So, oh, well, that just went off. Okay, got it. You know, it doesn't go on with any bolts, so you can kind of easily unmount this thing if you're not careful enough, and that's what happened to me right there. So, let's see, what's the next thing you gotta install? In this case, it is the gear stick. Well, to change gears, obviously. The gear stick has 3 6mm bolts that need to be bolted down. And, you know, to install that, that's a little bit fucky. If you just grab it, you can't install it. You have to drop it into the interior and then you can install it. But it's just like a minor inconvenience. Again, 3 bolts on 3 corners of the triangles, so to speak. Put them on. Come on, put it on there. There you go. And the next thing is grab the 5mm ratchet. Which I didn't do right there. You want to grab the 5mm ratchet first and then install the gear linkage. The gear linkage obviously is what connects the gear stick to your gearbox. Duh. So put that on. Now I'm grabbing my 5mm. Am I? I'm grabbing 7mm. Oh my god. Okay. Fast forward. Alright. We're back now. Anyway, there are 3 5mm bolts, 2 down here at the gearbox. There's the second one. Just gotta get to bolt it down. And the third one, if you look up there, there's a little nut there. I actually often overlook that, and then my gear linkage just falls out, so make sure you tighten that one up too. So that's the gear linkage now put in. Next thing you want to put in is the dashboard. You know, the stuff that holds all the analog dashboard meters. So you want to put that in. And with having said that, I actually in the real recording had to make a cut to get some food out of the oven. And would you know it, my crappy microphone started working again. So that's for now the last of post recording me. Back to my crappy microphone me, unless it decides to fail again. Alright, thank you very much. See ya. Alright, welcome back. Yeah, it took a little bit, but I'm here. I got my food now here, and let's just get this done now. So, let's see, where were we? So we have everything basically installed now. The electrics, everything looks good. So, basically, now we just have to now install the dashboard, which, you know, just grab it, put it into the car, mount it right behind the steering wheel, and you have to, of course, mount that with, I think it was 10mm. Let me check real quick. 6mm. 10, no, it was 10mm. Jesus Christ. With 2 10mm sockets. Let me just turn on the light real quick. It's getting a little dark already. So, one bolt is here in the center of the whole aperture, and then the next one is in the glove box. So, that's that. Now, the next part is, of course, the dashboard meters, which you have here. The dashboard meters, they go onto the dashboard. They tell you, for example, your speed, the oil temperature, how much fuel you have, and so on. And it's also got, you see the second from right knob, that's actually the choke, this little flappy symbol on there. That's the choke. The choke is very important for getting the car started up when it's cold. So we definitely have to install that. However, first, there's a second gauge, of course, here. This is the clock gauge, which you might guess tells the time. So you first have to insert that right here. Oops, see, okay, that almost went wrong. So that goes in with two 7mm bolts. Again, one here, one there. And then now this is optional. Again, I mean the radio. So, an old tuner radio. It's just cute little old radio. You can put this in here. Let me just get it in. You don't need to bolt it in, and you don't even have to install it. It just kind of looks better if there's no big gaping hole above those, both those amateur. You know what I mean? The get dashboard meters. Anyway, just put the dashboard meters in now. Get your 6mm bolt, which is the second smallest bolt size. Go to the glove box, and there are the two bolts you have to fixate. You can just close the glove box now. That's done. And now what you want to do is, where is it? The driver's seat. You want to now insert the driver's seat into the car so that you can actually sit down into the car, rev up the engine, see how it runs, whatever. So you just put it in here, and that thing actually gets bolted down with 9mm sockets, 4 of them. Again, just crouch down. One is right there. I can't see the other one, so what I do is just follow the line, follow the rail, and at some point, there's the other one. Same goes with the other side of the seat. Somewhere here is the third bolt. Follow the line down, and you'll eventually be at the fourth one, which is right here. So, now, that's done. So the last part now is, before everything else is done, is we install the headlight bulbs into the headlights. So you just take that, turn the headlight on its other side, grab the headlight bulb, and install it. Again, what I meant before, in the first part of this series about preparing your build, applies here too. This only applies if you're on the not open beta, but the experimental version of the game. It doesn't apply if you're unstable. Anyway, the headlights are now mounted. The headlight bulbs are in 2, which is great. But you don't install them yet. However, what you have to install first, before, for example, wiring the car, are the tail lights. You don't have to bolt them in or anything. Just put them in there. Somehow they hold by themselves. So just put them in there. Lean over here a little bit. Back off, and you have the check mark here. Put it in there. There you go. So now let me check. Is everything installed? Of course not. Here, well, I hope you did order the AFR gauge, the fuel mixture gauge, when I asked you to, because again, this thing is going to be crucial for tuning your carburetor initially, and also for inspection. So what you want to do is go here into the car, and it installs on the left side of the dashboard, right there. As far as I can see, the AFR gauge does not have to be bolted down, I think. Let me check that one real quick. You do not have to bolt it down, actually. Yeah, so that's that. So, but you have to wire it at some point. And now that we have everything installed that needs to be wired, as far as I can see, let me check real quick. Now it's time to wire the car. And that's very, very complicated, to say the least. Anyway, I'll walk you through that. I'll be calm about it, so I'll be very slow so you can follow. And the first thing you do is, of course, look for this little mess of cables. This is the wiring mess. Just left click on it to grab it and walk to the back of your car. You there? Alright, great. Lean forward. You should see there is the rear harness connector. Wait, walk forward to it until you get the check mark for it. Should be somewhere here. There it is, rear harness connector. Press F to initiate a connection. And now lean forward a little bit until you get there. It's also alright if you drop the wiring mesh for a second, because you have to connect it to the fuel tank. You see that little hole there? That's where you connect it to the fuel tank, and as soon as you have connected it successfully, the wire will appear and you will hear a little chirping sound. That indicates, yes, a wire has been laid. Anyway, there are still two connections on the rear harness that need to be connected. Of course, those are for the tail lights. Press F again, back off a little bit, rear light right, and do the same for the left tail light. That's not too difficult now. So, rear light left, there you go, wire has been laid. Now we can go to the front. So we've wired tail lights. Now obviously the next logical step is wiring the headlights. So the front lights connector, just press F here and lean to the left, headlight right. Wonderful. Front light connector again, headlight left. There you go. Now technically we could mount the headlights already, but first of all, let's just get the wiring done, okay? So now again, go to the front lights connector because we're not done yet. Get up and go look at the firewall of the engine bay. There is the main harness connector. We need to connect the headlights to the main harness connector. And while we're at the main harness connector, connect that thing to the regulator. The regulator is that little box here. Connect that. Then go back to the main harness connector. Connect that to the coil, which is the electrics. Here it says ignition coil. There you go. And now again connect the main harness connector to the radiator. Somewhere around where the radiator fan is, right there in the middle, you can see it right through that little gap there. That's the radiator connector. Connect that and you're good. So there's still something for the main harness connector. I need to check real quick where that has to go. That has to go to the positive terminal of the battery, but we don't have the battery installed yet, so don't worry about that. So the next thing is the fuse box inside the car. You can see it right there. There it is. So just get into the car, lean forward a little bit, and get to the fuse box. Maybe you know, if you want, or if you have to, just open the glove box. Get to the fuse box. There you go. And the first and most important thing you want to wire is the ignition switch. Without the ignition switch being wired, obviously the car won't start up because it's not gonna do anything. So now get back to the fuse box and go to the left, and somewhere it says that instrument panel 1. There you go. Wire that up. Go to the fuse box. Somewhere here it says, not radio, where is it? Instrument panel 2, right there. There you go. So now, as far as I can tell, the fuse box is wired. You can check real quick if you have wired everything on a part, because if you hover over it and the name of the part does not appear anymore, that means there's no more available connections. That means you have wired everything correctly. While we're already in the cockpit now, so we gotta look real quick. There's the radio harness. So go to the radio harness, press F there, and connect that to your radio. There you go. Now we're also looking, where's the dashboard connector? The dashboard connector is right there. So dash harness connector, press F for that, and wire it to the light switch. There you go, that's that. Now again, we have the dash harness connector, so there's another thing that needs to be wired, and in our case this is the AFR gauge. There you go, that's wired, that's fine. Now get back to the front because we still need to wire some more stuff. The regulator has to go to the alternator. Now where is it? There it is. And now everything is wired as far as I can tell. Let me just quickly grab something. It's getting a little dark already, so be careful. Don't worry, it's not scary. But I'll do something. So, okay. Now, where was I? Yes, the battery next. The next thing to install is the battery. You just grab it, crouch down a little, and it goes in this little gap here on the left. You don't need to bolt it down or anything. However, grab the wiring mess, and again, get to the main harness connector, which is in front here, and that has to go to the positive terminal of the battery, which is... Uh-oh. Where's the wire? Hold on, where's the wiring mess? I just dropped that. Where is that? There it is. Okay. I pressed F. I don't know why it didn't... Okay, anyway. Press F on the positive terminal. Now, what else? The positive terminal has to go to the starter. I can show you where it is. You can see on top there. That's where the wire goes to the positive terminal. Just back up a little bit. It says starter here. All good. Now, one more thing that needs to be wired is the negative terminal, and that needs to go onto battery ground connector. That is on the starter. That's that one 7mm bolt that we left loose earlier. So that you need to do that. Battery ground connector. You can hear the chirping sound, and as far as I can tell, everything's now wired. So, just put the wiring mess back. Let me check real quick if everything is actually now wired. And as far as I can tell, yes, it is. So, now, what you want to do now is... Hold on. Now we can install the headlights. Headlight right obviously goes onto the right side of the car. And headlight left goes onto the left side of the car. Now, grab your 7mm socket and bolt down the headlights. There's 2 bolts on each side. And the next thing you want to do is lean forward and bolt down the bolt on the starter that holds the ground terminal. And as at last but not least, grab a 5mm socket, go back and lean forward to the starter motor and tighten the bolt that connects the positive terminal to the starter. Now, the last part of all of this wiring stuff is to grab an 8mm socket. And this is important because if you do it in the wrong order, you are going to die because your character is going to be electrocuted. So, if you got any basic understanding of electricity flow, of how electric circuits work, you know what I'm about to tell you. But if you don't, the long and short of it is, always, under all circumstances, first you bolt in the positive terminal of the battery. And after that, you bolt in the negative terminal of the battery. If you do it the other way around, at first you're going to hear a chirping sound again. Let me just demonstrate it real quick. That, if I bolted in any more, I could have risked one of 2 things. One of 3 things actually. Number 1 would have been shorting the car, basically shorting the electric circuit, making the whole wiring unusable, rendering it completely useless. Number 2 would have been causing an electrical fire, and basically setting the car on fire, and if you don't run away from that fast enough, you're gonna die. Number 3 would have been electrocuting the player. So, that would have been certain death as well. So, always, bolt in the positive terminal first. And then you bolt in the negative terminal. When you unbolt the battery for extra wiring, and I recommend you do that because, again, when the battery is connected, you do not touch any part of it because there's very much high voltage going through there. If you wire, for example, marker lights that you buy for your car, or any more gauges that you put in, or the subwoofer, or anything, you have to first unbolt the negative terminal, then unbolt the positive terminal, then you put in your stuff, then you wire your stuff, and then you reattach the battery to the electrical system of the car. That's that important stuff. Anyway, it's already dark, it's already probably after midnight in the game, so I'm just gonna quickly head to sleep. And in the morning, we're gonna fill up the car with fuel and fluids and get it actually started. Alright, now, my character has rested, which is nice. So, the car is now peacefully sitting in your garage, which is great. Now, what you want to do is fill up the car with fluids, obviously. First off, you unscrew the radiator cap. Very nice. Now, you take your one bag of coolant, turn it upside down and just hold it over the radiator. That fills it up. It's gonna take a while, but when it's done, it's full. Okay, there you go. Now, the first thing you want to do is check underneath the car. Is there any leak? Is it leaking anything at all? Because if you've done everything right, everything the way I told you to do, you shouldn't see any fluid leak right now. No coolant leak, nothing. That's because you have the radiator hoses installed properly, which is very nice. Plus, you have bolted down the clamps properly as well, so I'm very happy if you did that, and if you do not have any fluid leak, I'm very proud of you. So, next part is the brake and clutch reservoir. Unbolt all three of them. Grab your brake fluid. Again, hold it upside down. And fill up your brake reservoir. Oops. It's already empty. Okay. Well, this one's empty. Gotta take the next one. Okay, this one's empty too. Remember, your clutch master cylinder uses brake fluid. This is a little weird, but just roll with it. So in total you need 2.5 liters. That is 2.5 bottles of brake fluid. There you go. Now it's full. You can put the brake fluid right next to the already open canister of coolant. Bolt it back in. Just close the caps and check real quick if you got any brake fluid leaking at all. Doesn't seem to be the case here, so everything has been tightened properly. Next part is you want to take the rocker cover, which we didn't put on earlier when we built the engine, and just put it on. Just put it on, don't bolt it down, because the only reason I put this on right now is to put oil into the engine. The rocker cover should be one of the last things you put on the engine before you get it to inspection, because you will need to adjust the valves and everything first. And if you have the rocker cover put on, you obviously can't do that. However, you can't fill up the car with oil if you don't have the rocker cover installed. So, hey, this is empty. No, it's not. There you go. Okay. Strange that I have to hold it in there. Anyway, it's filling up now. It's using, I think, just under one full canister of motor oil. So, let's just do this. Alright, again, if it's empty, it says empty. It's not empty, so you can put it next to the already used canisters. Screw the cap back on. Right click to unmount the rocker cover. And just put it on your desk. Now, next thing is, where did I put it? You need to, first of all, yeah, of course, unbolt unscrew the cap on the fuel pipe, because this is the final part before we start the car for the first time. Now, I put the jerry can with the gasoline here. You put it probably somewhere else. If you did, then grab it from wherever you got it. Put it on the ground. Open it up with pressing F, and then fuel up your car with all of the contents of the jerry can. Oops. Alright, the jerry can is empty, but don't worry. There's more than enough fuel in the car to get you to the inspection shop. Or at least to Fleetaris and then to inspection shop. Now, again, screw on the cap, and the car should now be ready to start up. So now, if you've done everything correctly, you should now be entering your driving mode in the car. There you go, I can turn my wheel, and press down the throttle, I can press on the clutch, I can press on the brake. I cannot dry run it through the gears for some reason, but don't worry. Now, check if you have any... check if your electricity works by just pressing the horn. It works! Great! Now, turn on the ignition. Just left click on it. You have red lights shining here, and your AFR gauge reads 0. Don't worry, that's normal for an engine that's not started. That means you have electricity in your car. Now, lean to the right or whatever and left click onto the choke. That pulls the choke out, which obviously helps cold start this car. And now, all you gotta do is crank it. Keep cranking it until it starts up. And there it goes. If you've done everything correctly, your car should start up and it should run. And don't worry about the AFR gauge, it's currently reading between 10.9 and 11.1. That's normal. What the choke does is it lets a ton of fuel into the car. It riches up the mix so much that it burns more fuel, which creates more heat, which basically helps the car warm up. So don't worry about that, let the car warm up. You can rev it up a little, see how it revs. Looks good so far to me. So you can just have it warm up, you can get out of the car again. And while the car is running, and I don't know why I'm yelling, but you can now check your alternator. Loosen it up a little bit until you hear the squealing noise. But then screw it back in until the squealing noise stops. Just about like that. Now, this is great. You can now grab your screwdriver, lean over again, and screw that goddamn thing in. Great. Now, of course, now we've got the distributor that's still a little unscrewed, so we can adjust while the car's running. Something just fell off. Oh, what's that? Let me check that real quick. Something just fell off. That's the starter motor that fell off. Oh my goodness. That shouldn't happen. Let me fix that real quick. Holy shit. Did I forget a bolt, huh? Okay, there we go. I think everything is now... yeah, everything's fine now. So, at least... so, in my case, the starter motor did fall off. I think I forgot a bolt earlier on assembly, but... you know, mistakes were made, but don't worry. Everything is fine now. The starter should not fall off now. Anyway, the distributor. So, we can adjust the distributor now by scrolling up and down. Or let me just unscrew this distributor a little bit. You need to unscrew it a little bit in order to allow for it to move. Scroll down a little bit on that thing. Go back into tool mode, and now just scroll up and down on the distributor itself. As you can see, retarding it too much or scrolling up too much leads to the car not running anymore because the sparks, well, the ignition seems to be too late. So you kind of want to advance it a little bit by scrolling down. And that leads to it to idle higher. Actually, this is kind of actually pretty interesting. There's no real ideal value for that distributor timing. So if the car runs, if it idles well, just leave it like that and screw it back in. And when the car's warmed up, just periodically check your temperature gauge. And when it's about at halfway, you can put the choke back in by right-clicking on it. And most likely, you're gonna hear... Yeah. You are most likely gonna hear a bang, and then the engine's just gonna shut off. What that indicates is that your air-fuel ratio is way too lean. Look at that. 17.3. This car is running on air. How do we fix that? Well, god dang, I'm glad you asked. Well, lean over the carburetor and you will see this little screw there. It's not an idle screw or anything, it is a air-fuel ratio screw. I think if you scroll up on it, it's gonna turn richer, and if you scroll down, it's gonna turn leaner. However, I might be very wrong. I was wrong. I was very wrong. So if you see the AFR reading anything more than 15, scroll down. Scroll down a lot. What I'm doing right now, for example. And go back into the car, because running it too lean is very dangerous, because then it's just gonna fuck up the engine, basically. It's still not idling high enough, which is kind of a shame. So it's currently at 16.3. It's still too lean. So you gotta richen it up a little bit. And, you know, you must make sure that the car does idle properly. So currently we're sitting in the green area at 15.5, and now it's idling fine. So, just richen it up a little more, till we get to about 14. Let's see how this goes. So we're currently sitting at 14, yeah. This is a little rich, however, you're getting a little more power, but you're sacrificing a little bit of fuel economy, obviously. So, and in accordance to that, you can also now adjust your spark timing, because those two things, they're kind of dependent on each other. So unscrew this again, and just play around with the distributor a little bit. You know, you don't have to, but don't screw it out too much, because then there's gonna be no spark period, and the car's just gonna shut off. So anyway, let's just fix this a little bit. See, that was a little bit too much to that one side. Again, it's gonna happen a lot. Your car is just gonna shut off by itself. That's normal. Don't worry about that. Anyway. And if the car just shuts off by itself, it's, again, you might have done something wrong with the distributor timing or whatnot. Just move it a little bit more to the right here. Because, you know, it's an old Japanese car. You have to love the car just as much as it wants to love you. It idles a little low, but don't worry. As long as it idles steadily, which it does right now, be happy. She runs. You know, you can adjust it. You can adjust everything a little bit. You can adjust the valves, which I'm not gonna do because I don't have enough experience with that. And while you adjust it, you can just rev it. See how it goes. See how it does. Anyway, we're done with that. So now, you can finally install the rocker cover, which goes up with 7mm bolts. 6 of them. So let me just do that real quick. Let me just really quickly check if the screw on the distributor is tight. It is. Okay, very good. Now, grab your 6mm bolt and then grab the air filter. Obviously, you need to put the air filter on, and then you can just screw that thing on now. So, next thing is, again, grab your 7mm. Okay, grab your 7mm and get underneath the car. Obviously, what your car needs is an exhaust, because, well, you know, who runs with open headers? No one can run with open headers. It just won't pass inspection, so just find a way. You need to kind of do some guesswork as to where the exhaust will meet the headers. And that's where you can mount it then. Somewhere like here. Not quite, that was actually the handbrake that I just pulled. Again, check where the... there it is. If you can't find it, just lay it down. Lay it down. Grab the exhaust pipe again and rotate it. Just rotate it a little bit, like that. Then grab it yet again. Drop it like it's hot. And start from scratch. I actually kind of... you know what? Actually, I kind of suggest that you grab the exhaust pipe as close to the mounting point to the headers as possible. That way you can more precisely guess where it goes. So, however, it looks to be a little stressful right now. So I, you know, just smoke a cigarette real quick to relieve your stress and then keep going. I know it's... look, the exhaust pipe is actually one of the most frustrating things, in my opinion, to mount on the car. Simply because it's such long... it's just the long exhaust pipe. I'm alright. Yeah, come on. Shut up. Alright. Anyway. Grab it again. Okay, if you find it, there you go, there's the mounting point. Now, you have your 7mm wrench already with you, or, you know, your socket, and then just tighten the 2 bolts here that connect directly to the headers, and then there's also 1 bolt on the line that connects the exhaust to the chassis, so that it just doesn't fall off, you know. Again, great, you have an exhaust, but it's a straight pipe, it's not gonna pass inspection, buddy. As much as I hate to say it, a straight pipe Satsuma, it's not that good. So you have to install a muffler. So, your muffler goes, obviously, behind the exhaust. There's only 1 screw, it's a 7mm, and it is right here. There you go. And now you have a working exhaust system. So, okay, let me fucking sit up here. So next you want to grab is a 6mm socket, because that's the socket you will use to mount the bootlet and the hood of the car. So the bootlet is right here. If you have already... hold on, let me just put it on here. Oops. It's behaving a little funny sometimes, so let me just... there you go. Open it up. And here are 4 bolts, 2 on each side, and they are 6mm in diameter. There you go. You can close that thing now. And move on to the hood. Obviously, the hood shields the engine from the elements, kind of. Can put it on here. Hold on, what's that noise I'm hearing? That sounds a little bit like... Let me just turn the engine off real quick. That's actually not a good sign. This is... Yeah, this is... This might be the distributor, this might be the valves. It was actually the distributor. So let me rev it up again. Yeah, if you're front just... Come on. I'm trying to fucking front So as you can see, sometimes you get this chirping sound just after like 3 minutes of the car running. So always be on the lookout for that. Anyway, time to bolt this on again. Aha, there was the bolt that I accidentally loosened. Anyway, I tightened again, which is good. Okay, back on topic. Now, again, grabbing the 6mm and grabbing the hood. Just take the hood from the front like this, tilt it a little until you get the mounting point. There you go. Now, of course the hood is closed by default, so pull the hood lock, open up the hood, and there you got your bolts that you need to bolt in. Also, yeah, the hood it opens up to the front. It's just like a I don't know. It's just like a you know, like a freaking sports car, like a I don't know what car did have that, like a C4 Corvette. I guess a C4 Corvette had that, so it's just like a Corvette. Anyway, for now you can close the hood. Make sure it does a clong sound, otherwise it's not really closed. Anyway, next thing you want to grab is the 10mm socket, because you will now mount the doors. So that's the left door, also known as the driver's side door. Mount it here. Grab your grab your ratchet, and mount those 4 bolts like a champ, like the champ you are. There you go. Same deal for the right-hand door. And there you go. You might want to open the door, because one thing you now need to install is the back seat. So simply because it's kind of easier to install that with no passenger seat installed yet. Ask me how I know. Anyway, you just go in through the passenger door. I mount it somewhere in the back. Somewhere here is where it goes. And it'll eventually just drop into place like this. And you can mount it just about here. Next thing you want to do is mount the passenger seat. Don't worry, you will still have to bolt this shit down. I'm just mounting it right now so I can bolt it down afterwards. So, you know. There you go. Now, 5mm bolts. You now have to take a couple of 5mm bolts, or just your 5mm socket. That's what I meant. Jesus Christ. And make sure and take the fenders. So, the fenders, they're a funny bunch. They kind of have a mind on their own. So just be very careful where you place them. Oh, because they sometimes just like to unmount themselves while you place them. Anyway, 1 bolt is down here. 1 bolt is up here. And the 3 other bolts are actually... guess what? You have to open the fucking hood again. And yeah, oh, god damn it. The fucking fender just fell off yet again.
Because they sometimes just like to unmount themselves.
Just mount it here. Tighten the nut, tighten the bolts down here. And the three other bolts are up here, usually covered by the goddamn engine hood. God damn it. Okay, do the same thing for the right hand fender. As I said, it kind of it behaves. It has an own brain. This thing. So let me just grab it again. Try to mount it. It just doesn't fucking want to do that sometimes.
Because they sometimes just like to unmount themselves.
Fourth time's the charm. Come on. Do I have to close the fucking door for that? Is it just that the fender doesn't like the door? There you go, my god. So, now that you've also mounted the fenders, you can open the door and go get something to drink and to eat, because my bars are up high through the roof. So, get something to drink, and then get back to work. So, again, the car is running, which is great. Open up your door, the passenger door, and grab a 9mm socket now. First thing you want to do is tighten the driver's passenger seat. Again, one bolt is here, one bolt is there, one bolt is somewhere there, and one bolt is back here. Now what you can do is fold the passenger seat forward and mount the rear seat. Where's the other one? There's the second bolt. And there you go. So you now have a working rear seat where you could technically sleep on. You can sleep on that back seat. Not even kidding you. So, oh, what was that? I saw that. Come on. Look at that shit. Come on, dude. Look at that. So yeah, the car is a little bent. So when you get the money, you can also when you have the money, I assume you still have about 9,000. Again, my assumption is that you have brought all wrecked cars to Fletari. If you haven't, then I suggest you do, because you're gonna need that money. Anyway, what you can now do is open up the trunk, take your back panel, the normal one, or if you already had the money to buy the subwoofer, god damn it, take the subwoofer back panel and put it up here. There you go. There you go, that's how it does it. So now, close the trunk, and technically, there's only one more thing to do. And I want to see if I can do that with the ratchet, because that one thing that you have to do is align your front wheels. So the steering... Oh, you can actually do it. No, you can't. God damn it. Okay, I need to... You need to grab, for that, you need to grab the 14mm spanner. And let me just shut off the engine, because this thing has been running for a long time. I know it runs fine now, but I don't want to have to yell. So adjusting your toe angle is very important. It's not really toe angle, it's more like it's just the wheel alignment. Because you want your car to go straight. If you have your steering wheel set straight, it's not very wise for your car to veer left or veer right, you know? That's why you adjust the steering. So what you do is you go to the left front. Doesn't matter where it is. You scroll down as long as you can. As long as the wheel moves while you scroll down, that means you're still changing the toe value. Do that until the wheel stops moving. As you can see, it's now not moving anymore. And now, scroll in the opposite direction. That means scroll up 60 times. That is 6 with a 0 after it 60 times. Because those bumps, those steering rods have 120 clicks from stop to stop. So we're currently at negative toe, at maximum negative toe. If you click 60 times up now, you will get neutral toe. So let's do that. Alright, 60 times on this wheel is now aligned, and just do the same thing with the other one. Alright, so the wheels are now aligned. So, what you can do now is, well, there's always still the grille and the bumpers that you need to install, but one thing I've been actually curious is where the fuck is the turbo badge? Because that's one thing I've been very curious about. So, it's not here. Because if you want, and if you have actually saved your turbo badge from disappearing into the void, you can put a turbo badge on the back of your Satsuma. It's not gonna add any horsepower, but, you know. Anyway. I can't see it, so it's probably gone. Anyway. It's not a must, but, you know, you can do it. So, the last parts to install are obviously the grille and the bumpers. The grille goes onto the front, pretty obviously. Well, it would help if you have it in the right angle. With two 6mm bolts. For that you can grab the ratchet again. One bolt is up here. And one bolt is up here. Now you grab the 8mm bolt again, or, you know, ratchet, to mount the bumpers. And you can see there's little rusty parts where the bolts go. Just mount it here. There you go. Check on the rear bumper. Where's the rusty little bit? Oh, there it is. And now, up. On the other side. Yeah, exactly right there. So, and the same thing with the front bumper. Alright. So, the front bumper looks a little bit crispy as well. Jesus Christ. Just mount it here, mount it there. And there you go, your car's ready, technically. So if you want, there are now a couple of things you can do optionally. You want mud flaps on your car? Put mud flaps on your car. Oh yeah, no one minds that. There's 4 mud flaps for 4 wheels. So, what now? You want hubcaps? We got hubcaps. Those Steelies, they look ugly without hubcaps. Put hubcaps on, they look a little better now. So, let me just do this real quick. And there you go, your car's ready to go. The only thing it's missing now is, well, license plates. And that's what we're taking on the next episode. Or the last part of this 6-part series is, well, getting the car through inspection now. Anyway, what you can do now is, however, carefully, do it carefully. Get into your car, get into driving mode, buckle up your seatbelt, buckaroo, start her up, and do a little test drive. Let down the handbrake, put it into reverse. There you go. What I personally recommend is that you don't drive very far with the car on your test drive. You just want to do a little acceleration, a little braking test, little this, little that, check if you have any fluids leaking, and maybe do a handbrake turn or two. The wipers work, the headlights work, and maybe you can check on your uncle to see if his van is already there. And as you can see, it's not. Which isn't an issue, however. Oh, there's that bottle of booze we left in the first episode. Anyway, I would say my test drive is complete. Check the alignment, I'm steering straight. And the car is going straight, which is great. And now just go back to your house. And, you know, you're done. You're finished with the car. Let me just quickly get back. And there you go, that's the Satsuma. And there you go. Okay, so that was episode 5 of the Satsuma build guide for my summer car. Getting the car tuned and getting it to run, basically. So, I don't see any fluids leaking from this perspective, so I'm good. I hope you're good as well. I hope I taught you well how to build the car so far. Again, if you liked it, share it with your friends, press the like button, subscribe, comment. You can also support me on Twitch, whatever you want to do. If you didn't like it, you can of course hit the dislike button, I won't judge you for that. However, I would love it if you could then tell me what I could do better. Anyway, now that's that. The next part is going to be the final part of this guide video. How to get the car through inspection. Of course, the long and short of it is, get Fletari to fix the car for you and then bring it to inspection, but we'll go into depth a little bit more next time around. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.